Now that we've covered what financial independence is and why to pursue it, we'll begin exploring how to achieve it, starting by developing a budget to optimize your savings and grow your net worth. So, why is it important to understand your finances? Well, you can't determine your savings rate and track your progress to 5 without knowing where your money is going. When you have a budget in place, you can begin making intentional decisions about how you spend your money and, more importantly, about how you spend your time. By exercising discipline with your financial decisions, you allow yourself freedom both now and in the future. Why is it important to track your spending? Well, this allows you to understand how much you're saving each month. It identifies major areas in your budget where you can reduce spending. And you can prioritize against your other values, just so you're clear with yourself and any others in your family. We've seen several examples where people, just by looking at their budget, have identified huge areas that they didn't want to spend in. For example, one couple realized that they spend as much eating out in 7 meals a month as their entire food budget for the rest of the month. Others have realized how much they're spending on daily coffee habits or how much they spend on gym memberships that they rarely use. So just by tracking your spending, you can see significant optimization opportunities. As you make your choices, keep in mind that every decision we make is a trade-off, whether we realize it or not. Paula Pant, who runs a hugely successful blog and podcast, has put it better than I can. Every decision that you make is a trade-off against something else. That's true not just of your money, but also of your time, your focus, your energy, and your attention. Anything in life that is a limited resource. The questions then become 1. What's most important to you? What do you value most? And 2. How do you align your day-to-day behaviors to reflect that? So the takeaway here is that our time and money are two of our most valuable resources, especially as we progress through our adult lives and they become more and more scarce. How we choose to spend our money and time is important not only in achieving financial independence, but in living a fulfilling and happy life. In order to make good choices, particularly trade-offs between now and in the future, it's essential to know how much we're saving. Our savings rate is simply our income less expenses. In other words, everything we earn minus everything we spend. Income can come from different sources, especially for those who pursue FI. It can come from a standard 9-to-5 job, side hustles, or passive investment income. As you build the nest egg, it's important to know how to invest money so that it earns money for you, and we'll talk more about that later. The premise of financial independence is to build a sufficient net worth that passive income can reliably replace traditional income. It may seem obvious, but it bears mentioning. Increasing your savings rate will allow you to achieve FI quicker. Let's take a look at the expensive side of the equation, and to do so, we can use my family's budget as an example. On the left, you can see a general breakout of our monthly expenses. Of course, these aren't perfect. Some months are greater or less than others, and we often have one-time expenses that we've done our best to divide between months. However, when you do your own budget, I encourage you not to get hung up on the small details. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You can always get started with the basics and then come back later to refine your estimates. My main takeaway from our budget is that housing, childcare, and food make up roughly 80% of our spending. If we're looking to make material reductions, we need to address these areas. However, my wife and I have determined that our spending is in line with our values. We're not getting rid of our daughter, of course, and we're comfortable with those amounts, especially because we view childcare as a temporary expense that will phase out when our daughter is old enough to attend public school. And while we'd love to reduce our housing expense, it's a product of living in a high cost of living area, which we view as a necessity because the majority of our friends and family live in the Bay Area as well. As my wife will tell you, I can sometimes be too budget conscious, as I do think about how much we spend on simple items like coffee at Starbucks. And while I'll never tell you not to save more, it is important to call out that for us, eliminating these items will do little to reduce our overall expenses, given their relative size when compared with the larger ticket items. Just illustrating a funny anecdote about myself. When I was younger and my income was lower, I used to always think about the extra cost of small things, even something as simple as ordering guac on a burrito. Now that I'm older, well, I still do, because that's who I am and always will be. But there are 2 points to be made. First, as we discussed in the last slide, these small choices will have a relatively small impact on our expenses when compared to the larger items like housing, kids, and food. But point two, FI is not just about creating a financial budget. It's a mindset where you always want to be aware of your choices, keeping your true values in mind. Here are some tips from the FI community that can help you keep your expenses low. Keep in mind FI doesn't prescribe a specific lifestyle. Rather, it encourages you to think about each of these items and consider your choices, and not blindly accept the traditional choice society would have you make. Housing, first. If you're single or if you're married and flexible, consider roommates. If you'd prefer not to live with others, don't spend more than what you need. Transportation. Buying a new car carries a huge sticker price, and all cars depreciate significantly the day you drive them off the lot. I recommend always buying used and more than 5 years old. Be selective about the car you purchase and how much you drive it, and consider other transportation options when you can. FI advocates living close to where you work so you can save on transportation costs and save time commuting as well. Kids. Of course, kids and childcare are a huge and essential part of our joy and fulfillment, and they provide a tremendous amount of long-term satisfaction. Very few parents regret having their kids, despite the exhausting effort at times and the large financial costs. But if you do decide to have kids, be aware that they do carry significant financial resources. Childcare is expensive, particularly for me and my family in the high cost of living Bay Area, but it's a necessary expenditure. Finally, food, too, provides some of our greatest pleasures and experiences. But eating out comes at a high cost compared to what you can make for yourself. And if you invest the time to learn to be a good chef, you can save a ton of money. My family enjoys hosting. We've replaced most meals out with fun experiences at home that still allow us to bond and grow closer with our friends. As I mentioned earlier, though FI advocates for a high savings rate, it doesn't prescribe an exact formula of how to spend your money. And like I said, I'm a valuist. My family is careful about what we spend our money on, but we don't deprive ourselves of things we care about. It's important to my wife that we have a home we own where we can raise our kids, so we put down roots in the Bay Area by buying rather than renting, despite it being a high cost of living area. And we've chosen to stay near our friends and family because it's important to us. And personally, I'm passionate about traveling. In the past few years, we've taken trips to Italy, the San Juan Islands, and Cape Cod, among other places. We were cognizant of costs on each trip, though, and often stayed with friends or friends of friends to keep costs down. And my daughter, of course, has simple pleasures. She just needs Mr. Draffy, her lovey, and a passy, and she's set to go.